hang out with some of the world's top guys, marketing experts. You've been in the room with Gary Vee and just other people. So I'm very excited to have someone that I've been following for a while and been admiring his work and some of his just the people that he's interviewed, but also the people that he's helping. So Jeff J. Hunter, he is an entrepreneur branding marketing expert. So what he does is he helps entrepreneurs and startups build and scale their remote teams to dominate in their category. He's creator of the core branding method, if you haven't heard of it. And he's founder of VA Staffer. So it's a 90-person virtual assistant and marketing agency.
Almost 100 now.
Almost 100, brother. Wow. Yeah. And also the host of Savage Marketer podcast. I'm excited to have you, brother. Yeah, dude. I want to start out, man, with something pretty fun. And you are now a TikTok star.
I guess I'm TikTok famous now, man? Yeah.
What's up with that? How did that happen? I mean, so you've gotten how many views now from your TikTok?
I knew you were going to ask that, so I started getting into it already. Let's see here. All right, so I now have 2.5 million likes. There it is. For those of you that are watching on Facebook, you can see 2.5 million likes. It's now 98,000 followers, almost 100,000 followers, and over 100 million video views. 25 million of those were on my own account. The other 75 were because it went viral everywhere. I went viral on Instagram. Other TikTok accounts were reposting it. And basically, it's about this gaming chair that I'm in right now. It's funny because I don't know about you, Skylar, but when you work remotely, you spend a lot of time at your desk. And I have a sit-stand desk right over here, which for those of you that are visibly able to watch, I still have this. This is my kind of production desk, a little messy there with my my lunch and my water bottle. Trying to lose some weight, because this COVID-19 got me up about 20. But I just was like, I bet people would get a kick out of this. And of course, me as a marketer, here you go again. I was thinking, quite frankly, about how I could leverage this to brand. And I've got my Savage, you guys can't see that, but I got the whole, here you go. You can see this on the side. And I'm in my underwear too, by the way. But see my
beautiful,
Savage Marketer branding down there? This is the crazy contraption I'm in right now in my underwear. Look at those sexy legs too, you know what I'm saying?
Wow. Very
nice. So I literally am in my chair and I'm reading comments because I posted a couple of funny videos with my sons because I bought this thing, but of course, ever since it came in, everybody wants my chair. My sons come in here. I had to actually put a baby gate up because he would come in, he'd hit the button, and then all of a sudden this whole thing would just open up like it is right now. Like right now it's opening up and then it's closing. And I'm like, man, my little 1-year-old, he could crush himself in this thing. It's not a toy, So this guy posted that I wasted $10,000, basically. He's like, imagine spending $10,000 and having a bad setup. And I was just like, I wanted to come up with a comeback, and I wanted to be humorous because I love using humor in my content. And it just came to me. I saw this video of a guy, and it said, being an adult's cool, and living on your own. But that also means now I have adult money, which means that I buy useless crap that I don't need, like this. And he was showing off a shower curtain with a dinosaur riding a bicycle. He was just like, this is ridiculous. And in my head, I was thinking, this is pretty ridiculous too. So I used his audio, overlaid a video of me getting into the chair, and it went viral. And I mean, it was in between a client call. I was on a call at 9 o'clock with my project management team, and I had a client call coming up at 10:30, and I had 20 minutes, and I literally set up my little tripod that I've got right here, little camera tripod, and I put it right here so it could see me in the chair. I hit record. It was a 15-second video. I posted it on TikTok. About halfway through my client call, my phone notification was like, and I was like, oh my God, I had to turn my phone off. Like, it was bad. And I looked at my phone and I had 900,000 views on my video in less than an hour. So I said, something's happening. Something's happening in a big way. And I went on Facebook and I said, guys, this is crazy. I'm going viral on TikTok. It's only been an hour. I've already got, 900,000 views. Like, this is probably going to be my biggest video yet. My biggest video before that was 2.7 million, Skylar. And by the way, 2.7 million is viral, right?
Yep.
But it had nothing to do with my brand. It was me at my sister's house on my birthday party, throwing her 1.5-year-old in the pool and him swimming out. Because he knows how to swim already. But I knew that would freak people out. So I threw him in the pool and he swam out. And I wasn't prepared at all. I didn't have my website ready. It crashed my website like 3 times. I got more traffic. I got 500,000 profile views a day to my TikTok profile, and my link to my website was there. So it wasn't until after I went viral that I updated the link, to something that's more useful. But yeah, so there's a lesson in virality here, which is one day it's going to happen and you should be ready for it. And I wasn't ready.
Yeah, who would have thought, dude? A little 15-second video. How many views again was that? You said not
on that one video alone is like 17 million, but then probably
wow.
22 million with all the other follow-up videos and stuff that I made, plus another 75 million from other people sharing it. And that doesn't even count the fact that it became a meme. It became a GIF, a GIF or GIF, whatever people call it.
Yeah.
It became 2. It became so famous that it became 2 GIFs. One of them says, dude is living in 2030. The other one says, just shut up and take my money.
Man, I love it, dude. Marketing genius. And I don't even know, right? That might have been an accident or might have been on purpose. I don't know.
I was trying, but I'll have to say I was not expecting that.
No, it's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah, it's interesting. How are you going to leverage that? Because TikTok is an interesting platform, right? There's a lot of people. And so the people that kind of watch, some of my content, a lot of business owners and, between the age of, 30 and 50. So they're not really on TikTok. So what's going on with TikTok? How are you going to leverage that? Like, where do you see that going? I'm curious because it's still an up and coming platform. I mean, it's there already, obviously, but.
So interestingly enough, and I know you've been kind of following my journey for a while, but I went to Singapore last year in December before all this Corona craze. And I took myself and my family. I was paid to go there. They paid for my plane ticket, and I stayed at the yacht club for a week, which was not cheap. It was 2 weeks, actually. It was like a long time. We were in Singapore. And it was for an entrepreneurship immersion academy. And shout out to Ai Zhang, by the way. She's doing really amazing things for kids all over the world. But when I went there and I spoke, I was the keynote speaker for it, opening speaker. And I fell in love with just educating young people about how to be successful in life. And, I just think about how many kids go to college and waste their time there instead of becoming valuable and starting to contribute to the world, right? Which is what working is if you do valuable work. And I taught them how to do social media. And I was teaching them how to set up an account online to work virtually for people. I showed them how they could make money as a social media manager for the hundreds of thousands of businesses around the world that don't have time or don't know how to run their own social media accounts for their businesses, right? Just very simple things. And when I came back from that trip in December, it was right before Christmas, I told myself that my initiative for 2020, because I'll just be straight up with you, man. My business is growing really well. It doesn't really need me. I've kind of removed myself from the business outside of talking about the business. I'm the revenue generator for the business, but
Yeah.
really my team is, because every day, like we have 100 people on the team, and I've never spent a single dollar on Facebook ads. I've never done any type of advertising at all outside of just telling people what I'm doing for other people. And then once I get a virtual assistant or a virtual, specialist or whoever I put in your team, once they do a good job, usually my clients want more, like in Phoenix, I have Caleb Antonucci, who owns Our World Energy, and he's killing it in the solar industry. And you probably know him. He's one of the platinum lions, and Tony Robbins, and he's just doing really amazing things. He wanted one, and by the way, we really had to talk him into one. It took like 6 months to convince him to get one person.
Well, dude, it's challenging. I mean, we're kind of in that spot. I've had a hard time figuring out how to do it on my own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are in that same spot. You have to convince them
Yeah.
to get a virtual assistant or start outsourcing. And until it's done right, which it sounds like you have a model, that you're doing it right.
Well, we have a really unique training, and even before the training, we have a very unique recruitment process. But anyway, we can talk about that later. But back to the topic is, I told myself back in the end of 2019 that my big initiative for 2020 was, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I was going to reach young people and show them how to have more valuable lives, show them how to work from home, show them, educate them. And this is a perfect opportunity because the people on TikTok are younger. Okay. I mean, there's still old dudes on there like us, in their 30s, but there's, 30, 36, 38 years old, and TikTok is like old.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like you're a boomer. Right. So what's really interesting is that this has given me such an amazing platform. And, every day I get people on my TikTok account asking me, what do you do? What do you do? How did you do that? Do you build virtual teams? I have people on Instagram saying, hey, are you, looking for people? Hey, can you mentor me? Can you train me? And now I finally have a really amazing way. And obviously those 100 million plus views that I got was all Savage Marketer branding. So now I have my Savage Marketing Academy, which is going to have a bunch of free stuff and paid stuff that young people can go and do and learn how to be useful, right? Imagine, you know what it was like, right? Most people listening to this podcast right now know what it's like to be a tween into your teens, into your, I don't know what the hell I'm doing in my life stage from like 18 to 29. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell am I doing with my life? And to be able to give direction and do that and have an incredible platform, that's how I want to leverage it.
Man, that's neat. That's powerful, right? Working with the younger kind of generation and supporting them because they're, and them being able to have you as an association, right, is critical. So on the topic of associations, man, I've seen a ton of pictures that you've been posting. You hang out with some of the world's top guys, marketing experts. You've been in the room with Gary Vee and just other people. So what is working? Like, how have you leveraged that, or how important do you feel that is for people to spend time with other higher level or industry experts? I feel like you've done an amazing job at that.
Well, I think it's the only reason. I don't want to say the only reason. It's one of the most important ways that I've been able to grow professionally and personally. I think that when you grow personally, you grow professionally. But what's interesting is, most everything that I've done has been very intentional. It's interesting, I know that guys like you and I aren't much of believers in luck. I do find that the harder I work, the luckier I get, though.
100%.
Right.
Yep.
But, I think it's really important. And that's one of the things that I teach in the core branding method is that you really need to, you have to have a deep emotional connection with your audience. You need to be omnipresent, meaning, now it doesn't mean you have to be everywhere. It just means you have to be where your audience is.
Mhm.
But the third one, which is really important, is relevance. How are you relevant to that audience? How are you relevant to the people in that room? How am I relevant to Gary Vaynerchuk? I made myself very relevant to Gary Vaynerchuk, and that's why we had a great conversation. That's why Gary Vaynerchuk featured my talk with him as the headline for his whole 90-minute show. Like, we only talked for three and a half minutes, but our conversation was so impactful that he named the whole 90-minute episode about our show. Like,
So
our
why was it impactful? Why was it relevant? Like what are you strategic and intentional about during like these conversations and staying relevant? Like how do you what does it even mean staying relevant
So
or being relevant?
what I'd recommend, and just because we're on the podcast, when you do the show notes for this, put a link to that video that I did so they can see it. And I'm going to summarize it real quick. But basically, Gary Vaynerchuk was speaking at an event that I spoke at 45 minutes ago. Okay, I spoke on stage 45 minutes before Gary Vaynerchuk. Matter of fact, I was like, oh crap, I was afraid that people weren't going to come and see me speak because I was at the room right next to him. And I'm like, I bet everybody's over there at Gary Vaynerchuk's just like trying to cram in for good seats, you know? So mine's going to be empty, but thankfully it wasn't. Probably because maybe they thought he was speaking in my room. I don't know. But he said, okay, look, I can give a presentation or I can just go up on stage and, you know, give open mic time. Can we set up mics? Like, as soon as he said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like getting my fat self ready to roll down the aisle and stand up at the microphone. This is an epic opportunity, right? And I think that the future rewards the quick. And I've always been very quick to move on things. And I think that entrepreneurs have a huge advantage compared to corporations and things in the marketplace because we're able to adapt and move and just do things quickly, right? We also have a bigger chance to fail, but that's also part of the game. You know, my risk tolerance over the years has gone down. My fear of failure has gone down dramatically. I've failed enough times to know that it just takes one good one. It'll counter all these 10 fails.
You can always get back up, right? You've gotten up many times, so failure isn't as intense, you know.
Exactly. So I get up to the microphone. I'm like the third person to speak to him. And the whole time I was waiting in line, I was just running through the whole conversation I was going to have a million times. And it felt like, oh my God, I was so nervous. I was like, what am I going to say to this guy? Like, I just ran for the microphone. I didn't even know what I was going to say yet. I knew that time rewards the quick, right? So I'm going. And I ran down there. And finally, I was thinking about, you know what, a lot of what I do in my agency and what I do with my virtual teams for my clients, as you know, is I help build brands, right? And a lot of that is content strategy. And, you know, I have a great video production team, graphic design team. My team does my podcast and my client podcast. And, you know, I was like, how could I leverage my time to establish myself as an expert and make him look good? See, I was thinking in my head, how could I make Gary Vaynerchuk look good? That's what I led with, okay? So the very first thing that I said to Gary was, Gary, I just spoke up on stage 45 minutes before you, and I'm just really, really glad that I spoke before you, not after you. And he laughed, and the audience laughed, so I opened it up nice.
Yep.
And then I said, and then I established my expertise, and I said, first I gave him credit and I said, I actually taught at Digital Marketer a content strategy that looks a little bit like yours that you teach. And he laughed and he has a little profanity, which I'm not going to say, but I'll bleep it out. He says that pitch deck or that slide deck has made a lot of effing people a lot of effing money. Right. And then the whole room starts cracking up again. And then I explained to those who maybe didn't know what Gary V and I were talking about, like some of your listeners right now. Gary Vaynerchuk put out this really cool content marketing strategy on how to take one piece of content, AKA a podcast, and then turn it into a bunch of things from quote images to little value bomb clips to all this stuff. And it's the same stuff that I do for myself and my clients. And I literally am taking his strategy and I'm executing it. That's it. That's all I'm doing. And it's made me tens of thousands of dollars, right? So and I explained it, and I just said it's genius. And then I said, okay, now the problem. The problem is that a lot of my clients have a hard time creating content. And it's like pulling teeth. And he said, you know what? That's why I invented document, don't create. And I was like, okay, tell me more, right? I wanted him to fill in the audience. So I'm trying to give him an opportunity to express his expertise. And at the same time, because a huge core product that I do for my clients is help them start podcasts, help do podcast production. That's a huge part of building a personal brand is a podcast, as you know, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
right.
Yep.
So here we are. So,
Yeah.
and then he says, well, look, if you don't have a podcast or you're a guest on other people's podcasts, there's no way you can keep up with the content created to build a brand that you need to today to stay on top in this congested world of productivity of content. And he says, and then he gives, and then, you know, the whole audience is like, oh, wow, this is mind blowing. And then I said, okay, listen, Gary, I'm going to send this video to all my clients who say they don't have time to start a podcast. They don't have time to create the content. And I want you to tell them something. You know, like, what are you going to say to them? I'm going to send this to them. And he says, well, if you don't do it, you don't get the reward. He says, you don't go to the gym, you're fat. Mm-hmm. You don't have time to spend with your kids, you probably have a challenging relationship with them in the future. And he says that basically, bottom line is you're prioritizing something right now that's not as important as putting out content for your brand. And I've literally used that video and I've sent it to my clients after they're like, oh, I don't have time. I literally send that video to them. So not only am I able to build my brand, so many people, by the way, came and said, oh, Jeff, I heard you on, you know, Gary Vaynerchuk's podcast, right? I made a video out of it. Oh, here's the crazy part. This is a testimony to what you just said of being around people that want to succeed with you, right?
Yep.
I'm in a room at the Digital Marketers Digital Agency Expo in New York City, and I've invited probably 10, 15 people there as a speaker. You know, like you invite people, you get paid. So of course, you know, I invited as many people as I could. I have like 15 people pay $1,000 to be there. And lo and behold, after I get done talking to them, I start getting all these Facebook messages from people that I either invited or they knew me or they liked me, even clients of mine. And they messaged me, and guess what they did? They all took recordings on their phone. I had 3 or 4 different angles on over here. I had 3 or 4 different angles from here. Sammy Taggett, the DJ, the MC at the event, the guy who introduced Gary Vaynerchuk and was behind him the whole time in the DJ box, took 2 videos from stage of him talking to me. He's my boy. He lives in Denver. He's matter of fact, Tony Grebmeyer's the one who got me connected with Sammy Taggett, and vice versa. So it's like, it's so important. And this is if there's one thing that someone listening to this could get out of this podcast, is that you have to put yourself in situations and you have to take risk. And you have to really genuinely care about the people around you, because if they can feel that you care about them, they will care about you. It's reciprocal. No one likes to be in a relationship where you give and never get back. And vice versa. It's actually very ironic that it feels the same way. If I'm receiving, I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing my part. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the best thing you can do is give without thinking you're going to give back, right?
Yep.
So anyway.
Yeah. Dude, that's great, man. No, so many good little nuggets there. Try to process through them, right? So just staying relevant, right, is super important, and also contributing in conversations, right? So you could have got up on, to the microphone and started talking about your own brand, right? You always hear those guys. Hey, my name is this. This is what I do. Da, 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 like pitching their own stuff the whole time, half the time, and then with a little question at the end. But you found a way to make
I did a little bit of that too. I won't lie.
Sure, but you found a way to build him up too at the same time. Right. Through a little joke, through things like that. So it's like providing value. And I know through a lot of your content, man, you provide as much value as you can, right? Through everything you do actually is about providing value to people, right? Through your TikTok, right? You're just not building a TikTok video reposting it to Facebook and saying, hey, you're saying, hey, this is what I did, but let me find some value for you guys. Let me continue to find value. And I think that's critical in today's marketplace. And it's a conversation that I remember hearing a lot of a couple years ago. I don't remember hearing as much of it right now. I don't know if you recall or you're experiencing that, right? It was all about like value, provide value. And it's kind of transitioned to, I don't know what it's transitioned to, but dude, I feel like that's the most important thing in content creation and through relationships, is finding a way to provide as much value as possible. So like with Rise Up Kings, like we have, like I have a mastermind group, and I'm just thinking daily, like, what can I do to over deliver on value, right? I'm just like getting like, what boxes can I send them? What cool gear can I send them? Like, how can I go above and beyond with this product where they want to refer everybody? Like, I'm constantly thinking about like, how do we provide more value? And I think you do a fantastic job on that. I wanted to cover branding with you, because I feel like you're a pro at branding, man. Branding and branding strategy. I love your core strategy that you went over with me one time. Do you share that with everybody? I know you made it.
I give it freely. And
Yeah.
the reason I give it freely is because just like Gary Vaynerchuk gives his whole content remarketing strategy, right? Because it's not fun to execute things on yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I see it this way: if I give you the strategy and you want to do it yourself, I'm belated, because maybe you're not at the place in your life right now to where you can afford to have a team do this stuff for you, and that you have time. I don't have time, right? Most successful business owners don't have time, right? So they kind of disqualify themselves for me by saying, thank you so much, Jeff. I'm going to try this out. And I say, fantastic. Right.
Before you go into the core strategy, or if we get to that, what do you think is one thing that people are doing wrong in their branding? So if you were to look at a brand, right, a new and up and coming brand, a smaller or medium sized company, like what is a mistake that people are doing right now that you're seeing, or just in general, like a couple, like, do not do this, like this is not good for your brand?
They don't have an enemy. They don't have a villain.
You
got to have a villain. Every good story has a villain. And most brands, most companies don't have a villain. So,
Explain.
For me, it's interesting what people don't understand. You don't have to be polarizing, okay? But you do have to pick a villain. And I'll explain. Here's a perfect branding. One of my clients that owns a multi-million-dollar company, and they sell the world's easiest solution to sell. It's a brilliant product, and it has a clearly defined enemy, and the enemy is very easy to visualize. All right, it's a plastic jug. It is a plastic jug. Okay, the company's name is True Earth. Shout out to my boy Ryan McKenzie, doing an amazing thing, him and his team. And they developed get ready for this, a dry, terrible strip laundry detergent. All you have to do is rip a little tear of the dry sheet. It almost looks like a softener thing. It's a little thicker, I'm trying to think, maybe it almost looks like a stick of gum or something. You just tear it off, a little perforated thing. You throw it in your laundry, and it uses water anyway. And guess what? The main component of laundry detergent is when you buy it in a jug. It's 80% water.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tear off strip. You throw it in your load. I think each little, bag, which is a very thin sleeve they send you, is good for like 32 loads of laundry. And they keep track of how many plastic jugs they've been able to save by their product.
That's genius. Well, not only the strips, but they're the clear enemy, right? So people can, and why do people want an enemy? Why do they want to buy from a brand that has a clearly defined enemy? I know it's a part of stories, right? We all want a villain. But why else? Why do you think? What's
It's the same reason why Mac versus PC works so well, right? It's about developing a fan culture. Okay, it's about developing out a following. And that's the same reason why I call my podcast The Savage Marketer. And it's the same reason why I call it the Savage Marketing Academy, because I'm instilling in them savage marketing strategies. I'm showing them ways to do things differently, right? And even when Apple came out, and they're still using this branding today, think different, right? They're different. That's one of the things that Apple has been really good at, is that they're different, right? Now that everybody has them, they're not, but it's still, it's still their branding.
Go against the status quo, you know.
Right.
They've always focused on that. It's interesting. It's got me thinking.
Remember, Skylar, back to the original Mac. I mean, you have to go back to the 80s to find the original Macintosh advertisements, where they were literally just destroying other PCs and then replacing them with the tiny little Macintosh computer, which wasn't very tiny at the time, right? But in the 80s, that was a super tiny footprint, right? They didn't have flat screens or anything like that. So how can you position yourself as the disruptor? How can you change yourself as something that changes the way people view an industry? And here's what's really important, and this is what works really well for my virtual assistant company, VA Staffer. My enemy is the office. It's simple. My enemy is the office. And by the way, there's lots of reasons why you shouldn't have an office. And by the way, you don't, but see what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to, sit there and I want to put this out there. It's not like a political polarization type thing, although, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. That's very profitable as well.
You don't stray away from that.
I post my opinions. I'm a libertarian. Nobody likes my views. So, you know, I'm all over the spectrum, man. People don't like me at all. I'm like, hey, you can sleep with whoever you want. Just keep my money in my bank account. We're good to go. Just leave me out of it. As long as you don't hurt me, we're good. So here's the thing. I just want everyone to think about this really important factor, which is people don't want to improve their lives. Okay. Now you might be saying, that doesn't make sense, Jeff. Why wouldn't they want to improve their lives? They don't. They want to be transformed. They want to be transformed. You have to give someone a reason strong enough that will make them change the way they think about something for them to take action.
That's powerful, dude. The transformation. I've heard that. I've heard that a couple times. That's part of a Rise Up Kings thing, right? A life transforming, right, experience. Nobody wants to go to an event that made a improvement.
Right.
Okay, I went to a seminar. I had an improvement in my business. Like people, I mean, they won't pay top dollar for that, and they won't. Yeah, that's not ideal. So, right, creating a transformation. So branding and messaging, dude. Messaging's critical. So we talked about a little bit about right, having a relevant message or being relevant, and then also the right messaging. What are a couple? What's a conversation around messaging that you think is relevant to people nowadays? Like,
so building out relevant content is actually very simple. I think a lot of people overcomplicate it. And it all begins with what your brand promise is. If I'm going to tell somebody that I can help them build a brand so they can be recognized as an expert in their field, right? A lot of people that come to me are already experts, but they suck at, you know, branding themselves as the expert. So people that aren't even as good as them are known as the expert, right? Nothing's more frustrating than being really good at something Dude. And seeing somebody who's an amateur who is seen as the expert.
Who's better at branding and messaging, right? Dominating. But
you're the true expert. So frustrating.
Happens all day long. And that's actually what maybe you could support people on, right? So Jeff comes in, that's half of your clients, right? They come in, they're maybe good at what they do. Maybe they're not the best in the industry, or maybe they are, but you come in and you can say, hey, dude, I'm going to help support your brand and really build a professional brand where people want to buy from you, as opposed to dude, I saw this speaker. It's so disappointing, man, when you see some of this branding for this like old school. I got hit up through an email. This guy wanted to do some speaking at an event, and his video looked like it was from like 1990s, like early 1990s, like, and maybe it was. And dude, the logo, the branding, the graphics, it was like, it was so just outdated and old. And I'm thinking, dude, with $1,000 or a couple, this guy could have a completely renewed, professional, like engaging brand.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I guess people don't see the value in it like I see the value in
Well,
brand.
the other thing too about the branding is that a lot of people think that it's about the logo and the video and whatever else, but really, like you said earlier, it's about the messaging.
Did it?
And
100%.
see,
Yep.
that's why it's so important, because now if his branding was off from a visual standpoint, but he had a really good message, right?
Maybe, but if it's a video, just by looking at the video, I watched 5 seconds and I turned it off.
It looks like it was converted from VHS to DVD.
Dude, 100%. Where I couldn't even hear the message because the quality was so bad. I didn't even want to listen. I even thought in my head, if this guy can't get like even some decent graphics right and like some decent stuff, there's no way in the world I would trust him to do something for me. So they kind of play, but yeah, messaging for sure, I believe, is the most important thing. But if you're not aesthetically appealing to people, like might pop on the site, ignore the message and pop right back off.
That's true.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
No, you're right. So, and that's why our very first step is the messaging. We always determine the message. And then once you have the message and who the audience is, then you can come up with how that message is going to come, right? How that looks, right? And then back to the relevancy, it comes down to your promise. What is your promise? What is it that you do? I call it the core promise. Like, what is it that you actually tell people that you can help them with? So if I'm going to help people build a virtual team, for example, then if my promise is that I can help you build a virtual team to grow and scale your business, then I'd have to know and everyone can do this. Okay. I want you to pause. Think about what it is that you do for people. Okay. Now I want you to think about, here's the thing that you just said that you do for people. It's up here at the top. Okay. Now this is going to be supported by 5 pillars. Okay. So you're putting this giant rock on top of these 5 pillars. And these 5 pillars are the things that you're really good at that back up your promise. And this is why a lot of people don't grow their brand the right ways, because they say they're going to help you do something, but they suck at it, right? So if I'm going to help you build a virtual team, then I should probably know something about outsourcing. I should probably know something about remote team management. I should probably know something about, methodologies to pay. I should know something about onboarding. I should know about project management. I should know a little bit about softwares and tools and different things to organize it all. I should know about how to delegate and make what I call freedom recipes, which are standard operating procedures. These are all things that if I'm going to instill confidence that I know how to do virtual team building, that I have to actually demonstrate competency in these 5 pillars, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I want you guys to think about, okay, if this is the promise, I'm going to help people fill in the blank, then what are the things that people need to believe about you so that they know you can actually fulfill on the promise?
So I own a restoration company. Our promise, our core promise is that we will be able to restore your life back to the way it was before the emergency. I don't know if it's worded that specific way, but then I'm thinking through what are we promising? What does our site say? What are our pillars, that prove that promise, right? Obviously, having a contractor license and understanding the construction industry, right? Cool. Just kind of breaking those down. That's fantastic. I love that. And yeah.
And what's beautiful about this is that it passes through everything: your website, your emails, your onboarding process. You're just reinstating the confidence that people have in the abilities that you have to fix their problems, right? So for example, you have a restoration company. I'm assuming that obviously you would know something about, construction and building roofs and whatever else things that you're doing, right? You probably have to know how to manage a team and make sure that, you have a quality, consistent, reliable team. I think, people think about security and safety a lot. They probably think about, insurance funds and how to make sure you're doing claims right and all these different things. So I think you told me that a lot of your funding is through insurance, right? So like if you can address these things, like I have a client, Greg Weinstein, who helps people that are going through, you know, right now, sadly, a lot of people, especially here in California, they have tenants in their houses that aren't paying the rent, and they still have to pay the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
So they're probably going to be in a situation here where they're going to go through a foreclosure or something, or they're not going to be able to pay, especially multifamily units where there's just, you know, payments are really high. There's empty apartment buildings in San Francisco right now that have less than 50% occupancy, and you know they're just going negative real quick. So what he does is he comes in and he figures out solutions, whether he buys the property, whether he'll figure out, you know, what to do with this. But when we went through his branding together, it was like, well, what are the big concerns that people have? Well, most people want to know that you are very well versed in dealing with these types of situations, right? Because they're what's called motivated sellers, people that have to sell this thing or something bad's going to happen. So how can we help people out of the situation? You have to be able to navigate the laws. What are the laws that, you know, about tenants in California? How do you kick people out of a house that there's a moratorium on evictions until the end of the year? You know,
Yep.
people are
Yep.
just skating through the rest of this year. And it's sad because the government, you know, a lot of them, they can't even go to work because the government's told them that their business is not essential, right? So anyway, the point is you've got to really think about, you know, what are the pain points that your clients have? What is it that's super important for you to actually demonstrate expertise in to deliver on the promise? And then how could you say that and express that in a way and create content around those pillars so that people are like, oh, okay. Because a lot of people, they say, oh, it's like, I see it like a resume, right? You and I both know resumes are crap, right? Most people know how to write a great resume. Most people can copy and paste the resume online. It looks good and modify it, right?
Yep.
But when you build content that demonstrate expertise, now we're in a completely different ballgame, right? Like when I made that Facebook post about what's happening to me on TikTok and things I've learned and why it was valuable to me and whatever else, people are like, oh, wow, Jeff not only was able to go viral on TikTok, but I'm learning from him so that I might be able to do the same thing, right?
What so this conversation, right? Because we talk about faith, our 4 pillars. We have 5 pillars, so we have 4 pillars. So ours is a little less sturdy, I guess.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. So we have 4 pillars. We have faith, family, fitness, and finance, right? The conversations we're kind of having are around finance and business and scaling and growth. And you're interesting because you're somewhat not newer, but you've always been, I think, an entrepreneur, but you really in the last couple years really scaled your VA company to like 90 people. Is that right?
Yeah, they did 30 interviews today.
Man, that's incredible. Like what has been, and I'm huge on scaling and systems and processes. Like that's my thing. I'm writing a book on it actually as we speak, on really how do you pull yourself out of your business? How do you scale, right? How do you get the right systems in place, the right people in place? And then what are the mindsets that the leader needs to have as he's leading and developing that team? And then how do you eventually kind of pull away and have your team run that business? I feel like that's an area that I've over the last 5 years just really grown and developed my skill set. And that's what we teach at Rise Up Kings is how do you scale a business? How do you get out of the entrepreneurial chokehold? So I feel like a lot of businesses, like you seem like you're out of it, but a lot of businesses are literally in a chokehold by their business. They're stuck in their business, don't know how to get out. They don't want to tap out and leave the business, but they're literally stuck inside the company doing all of the tasks, be involved in all of the decisions, and really not building an actual like systemized business. So what do you feel has allowed, I always like to hear from different people that have been able to scale companies. What has served you? Like, what are you doing that's allowing you to be not involved in the day-to-day as much or at all? I don't know. Yeah.
I don't want to say that I'm the expert at this because it's been a lot of growing and learning myself. But what I've learned is that in the beginning, you're going to do a lot of work yourself, and you're going to have to put together processes and figure out how things work. But I think even more important than process is people. And I think that I wasted a lot of time in my early years hiring the wrong people. And, you know, just last week I had Miles, who is my project manager overseeing the executive assistant team. I woke up, you know, in the morning and looked at my phone, and there was a hellstorm. I was like, what's going on here? And she said, sorry, boss, for the confusion. I just had to fire someone. Now, mind you, this is probably the third or fourth person she's fired in the past 2 months. And I'm like, gosh, dang, man, she's really firing a lot of people.
She went rogue. No.
and the crazy part is, it was someone I really liked and was very capable and smart and had a great attitude. But Miles has a zero tolerance policy on ethics. And she found that this person, I'm not going to say her name, but found that this person was working for a client, and the client wasn't giving her enough work to do. And instead of finding work to do or coming up with solutions or training, doing self-training and things like that, she decided that she was just going to install a software on her computer that made it look like she was working. And I wouldn't even have caught it because I don't do that level of monitoring. My project managers do. But she was instantly terminated, not even given a warning or anything. And I was like, wow. And I said, well, Miles, why did you do that? You know, like, didn't you have a replacement and whatever? And she goes, boss, I can always get a replacement. I have, you know, I'm hiring all the time. You know, to me, if this person has compromised ethics in this, they will have compromised ethics in other things. And I was like, wow, you know, and actually I disagreed with her decision in the beginning of it. And as the CEO, disagreeing with a management's position, it causes a lot of tension, right?
Oh yeah.
Probably more tension for her because to me it's just another day, right?
Yep.
But our relationship actually has grown stronger from this because she did do the right thing. And looking back on it, the only thing that I would have said to do differently is that we should probably have the backup plan before we confront her and tell her she's fired, right? She didn't know that we knew yet, right? Mm-hmm. I probably would have, you know, probably would have had some people come in. So she learned that part. But the point is that you're talking about the scale factor and what it is that you need to remove yourself from the business. And I will tell you, I have 6 project managers on my team. I have one that oversees the web. I have one that oversees the creative, which is graphics and video and stuff like that, branding. I have one that oversees the executive assistant team. Her name's Miles. That's the one we've been talking about. I have Julio, who's our inbound sales guy. So anytime someone says, hey, Jeff, I'd like to learn more about VAs, I'm like, oh, bro, absolutely. I'm going to hook you up with Julio, and he'll even do a little strategy call to find out more about your business and how we could help, right? I passed that over. That was the last thing that I delegated.
Yep.
Was sales.
Mm-hmm.
Because sales is obviously the lifeblood of your business, right?
I think I'm interested to see if we scaled the same way. So what I typically do with my business is that I scale is I usually, you know, I'll jump in and do all the work first, right? And then I will train somebody, right? Bring them on and start training them. So that's kind of how we did it when I scaled Superior Restoration. We bought a carpet cleaning van. Then I got it to where it was busy enough where I wasn't operating. I hired somebody to run the carpet cleaning van, trained him. And then so I was doing sales, accounting, you know, all the different hats. And then so I started doing sales, and then I got another van, another 2 vans. And then once I felt like we were busy enough, then I hired a salesperson. I trained that salesperson. And then I eventually kind of pulled back a little bit from the sales. Then I started, pulling back from the accounting, hired an accounting person. But I love to learn the roles. I don't know if you're this way either. I love to learn the roles to kind of know like how my company's operating, as opposed to just being completely blind with key roles that you have no clue, right, how they really operate. So that's how I scale.
And I think that, I mean, yes, by the way, but I think that one of the reasons why most entrepreneurs do this is because the buck stops here, right? If something goes wrong, that person doesn't come in for the day and your customers are expecting it. Sometimes we have to show up and do things, just like last night. You know, last night I had a call with one of my copywriters who was struggling in doing a task for a client, and it had already been a week, and I found out late that, you know, they still weren't able to figure it out. And I was like, let's get on a call together. Let's go through it. Let's screen record it. And then you can save this as a process doc for you to do in the future. Okay. So I pop on, I log into the Shopify site. I show them how to update the SEO backlinks and this and that, you know, the things that they wanted to do, because they're good at doing it on WordPress, but they never did it on Shopify before. So I said, let's set up your Shopify account and all this stuff. So we did that. So at the end of the day, you know, the client's going to ask me what's going on. The client's paying me, right? So I think that you drive a really important point, which is it's very important to know your business. No one should know your business more than you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
That's just pretty much how I see it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very rare that I meet anybody that actually has leveraged and been able to kind of pull out of their business without it collapsing. So what I've found is, you know, I ask people, hey, are you able to take time away from your business? What does most people say? Yes. Yeah, I could go on a little vacation or take some time off. But what they don't realize, or what they do realize, is most people, when they take time off, that usually means less income and less revenue. Right? So that's less. The business starts to deteriorate and decline. The goal is, how do you build a business that can be systemized and actually can grow the more that you pull out? So it's interesting. The last 2 years, as I've been working 2 days a week in my business, I've worked 2 days a week in my business for the last 5 years, and less than 2 days a week in my business for the last 5 years. But the last 2 years, my profit has doubled each year, profitability, net profit, with my general manager and my team running the company. And so, dude, it's like, it's almost kind of mind blowing. And so that's like right. Initially, maybe you can pull away a little bit, but the goal is, how do you get your business to become more profitable? And how do you hire the right kind of people that can take the lead, and that can actually grow the business?
So I was in Utah last week, and this is one of my businesses. And I can see that last week was probably one of the most profitable weeks that I've had this year. And I didn't even have reception, right? I can see here, I mean, these aren't big boy numbers. This is 60 grand. But it's really interesting to me. As a matter of fact, I was doing a mastermind with just two of my friends that live near me in Elk Grove, and that's near Sacramento. And it's so funny because all three of us had the biggest weeks in our business while we were gone at that mastermind, and our team was running it for us, except for Rico. Rico's a real estate agent, and I'm going to be helping him. We're going to get him an assistant, because boy, was he working a lot while we were on that trip. He had like 4 Zoom calls,
oh, man.
You know, and we only had internet at the base station. So it was like, you know, we couldn't go on like numerous trips. You know, we had to like, okay, make sure we're back by 4, you know? So, you know, but the thing is, I think that the key takeaway to that, and I think, Skylar, this is the key takeaway, is that the reason why you're having growth isn't because you're not focused on the business, because you're focused on the business. It's because you're not focused doing things inside the business. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're focused on the business, yep. Right?
Oh yeah.
And see, when we did that trip to Utah last week, we were able to focus on our businesses and figure out, we all went there with a game plan. We were there for only 1 week. Okay. We were there from, you know, literally like not even a full week. Like we had 5 days and travel on each end. And the first thing we did when we got there, we said, okay, what's the one thing that you could do for your business on this trip that would make a huge impact? So for me, I knew that I'm lacking a very strong, solid onboarding process. And when I say onboarding, I mean like once a client is onboarded, the communication is handed off from me to my team. What I want to do is set up a series of videos with tips and tricks on how to leverage my team and how other clients are leveraging my team. So I've already started building out, and I shot like a dozen videos while I was there with tips and tricks and different ways to utilize a virtual team. And, you know, it's just incredible because guess what the most common question is that I get when people come to me about a virtual assistant? They say, what can a virtual assistant do?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Right? Even my existing clients. Here's one that happened this week. I had a client like, hey, you know what? You know, he uses us for a podcasting booking service where we actually help him get on podcasts. And he's like, hey, Jeff, this has been really great. I got on tons of podcasts. I think I'm good. And I was like, you think you're good? Yeah. And I said, well, why don't we leverage the virtual assistant doing the podcast outreach to helping you work on your Dream 100? And he's like, your Dream 100? He's like, my Dream 100, you guys can do that? I'm like, yeah. He's a JV guy. For those of you listening in, Dream 100 is about like, who are the 100 people that can help you take your business to the next level, either through referral partners or JVs or, you know, partnering up to produce a product together. Like there's so many different things that you could do by collaborating with other people that are in non-competition, you know, that are kind of in parallel, but they have the same type of audience as you, right? So he's like, yeah, that's fantastic. So he had a list of like 30 people. We built out another 50 people, you know, recorded their Facebook, their Instagram, their LinkedIn, their email addresses, you know, their websites, and collecting all this information. Then the VA's going in and adding them on LinkedIn, adding them on Facebook, following them on Instagram, right? Like, so they're leveraging our team now for 3 hours a day to just go and start building his connections with other people that are influencers that could actually change his life, right? That can take it to the next level. He was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you could do that, right?
See, that I consider that working kind of on the business too, right? Is leveraging a team member that can do the work so you can focus on higher level priorities. Because if he's the one reaching out to everybody and finding them on Instagram and following them and doing all of that work, it takes him away from his highest leverage work, right? I always tell people, right? Find a way to get out of doing the $20 an hour work. You should not be caught anything that you could pay somebody $20 an hour to do, like immediately go and leverage that and get rid of it, either remove it or delegate it to somebody else. Man, it's interesting as you're talking about the VA thing, man. Because it's interesting because I'm actually that I feel like that's one of my expertise is just getting stuff off my plate so I can just be present. But the new stuff comes on. It's always just getting added on my plate, creative ideas. And so I'm trying to find out. Yeah, maybe I'll reach out to you after this and kind of game plan.
It's so funny because I can't even imagine it. You know, like I even have Isabel, who's my assistant. She comes on every call with me. She takes all my meeting minutes for me. She has a to-do list. She does the action items, and then she goes after the call and she tags the appropriate people with action items, says, here's the meeting minutes. Here's what you need to do. Right?
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's like just that alone, like that's like 30, 45 minutes of work after a call that I don't have to do. Right. And not to mention, I get to stay super focused on the call and focus on the client, not taking notes. Right. And it's mind boggling. Like just that one, if all you did was hire one person to do that, you know how much your business would increase because you now have accountability in your business. And by the way, you look good. I have won deals because people told me I've never been on a call and had such detailed notes. Like I've never seen anything like that. You are on top of it. And obviously because you know how to do it and you've got it for yourself, I want the same thing. And it's just like the what's the old saying, right? The shoemaker's kids go shoeless, right? Like you have to really do the things that you're telling other people to do. And if you don't live, and you're not coming from integrity. You're not living with integrity. you're becoming one of those internet marketer, life coaches.
Yeah, exactly. No, we anything to avoid that, man. Well, this is a fun conversation. I didn't realize it would go down that route, and just on the conversation of leverage, right? How do you leverage your team? How do you build a business? What's the mindset around kind of pulling away? And you've obviously done a fantastic job with that. I had no clue that you had built that size of a company and had that quality of. Yeah.
I want to be real with people, which is I dedicate 1 hour a day to my team at 9 o'clock every morning for my all hands project management call, which is 6 of my top leadership team, the ones I was telling you about earlier, my operations manager, web developer, graphic design, creative team, Nicole, who is our lead generation specialist. She manages and oversees the entire lead generation team. Miles, who does the executive assistant team, and Julio, who is like the sales driver, and Isabel, who's my own assistant. Those are the 6 people that I spend my time with the most on my team, at least a minimum of an hour a day. Okay. And I would say an hour a day solid. Like today we had a meeting that went a little bit longer, an hour and a half, because we're implementing a new KPI metric system company wide that starts October 1st, which is only a few days away. By the time people listen to this on the podcast, it's already October. So, these are initiatives that I would have never been able to do if I was focused on running my business. If I was doing inside my business, I wouldn't be able to focus on a new metric system or, being able to dedicate my time. That's their call. It's not my call. It's their call. They have the call. I'm there to help them discuss any situations. And I believe that, and another thing too, that I'd love to leave your audience with is if you're running a remote team, it's very easy to become disconnected with your people. And that's when the disappearing act starts. And see, this is one of the key factors that I found in my recruitment process, through my training process, my onboarding process, to one-on-ones, checkups, project management call, meetings. Everything is very personal. We try to really keep it video chat, just like we're doing here. Because I think that you can really read people better. And when people don't want to come on video, there's usually a reason. Okay.
Have you found that to be true? That's interesting. That's interesting, right? When they said, "Hey, can I not do? Can we just do a voice call today?" Or there's something's going on, kind of.
Even Nicole, I mess with Nicole because she lives and her family's always up and messing around. But it's funny because I know by the angle of her PC, the way that it is, she's on a laptop, like, because it's below her. So for her to see the screen, she has to angle it up. So it's always the forehead up on every call. And I always make fun. I say, Nicole, you have the most beautiful forehead I always see, and even things like that, just like start doing job crafting, guys. This is the final thing is do job crafting, really figure out a way. So if you want to keep retention, which is a huge problem in businesses, right? Like keeping those people happy and motivated to work on your team. Look at what they want to do in life. Get to understand them. As the CEO, I don't manage every single person on my team. I don't even see every person on my team. But I do want to know what their goals are in life. And I want myself and my manager to come up with how can we create a role for them? How can we craft it so that it fits what their end goal in life is? What do they want to do? And that's why I have people on my team that have been working for me for 6-7 years.
Dude,
Yes, my company's 7 years old.
That is I don't recall that term, job crafting. I love it though. I have my general manager. She wants to impact people. And so I have an opportunity where she can coach people now, like other businesses, because she's so successful at scaling. And so like, that's a way I can craft a job role where she can get fulfillment from, so I can keep her. Otherwise she may find another opportunity and that's more fulfilling, that is in alignment with what she wants. But if I can craft her role in a way that can keep her there, then I'm always looking for opportunities to like, how do we improve a role? So dude, that is gold right there.
Same thing with my operations manager. She's been working with me almost 7 years now. Her name's Rodora. She was totally underqualified for the job. Actually, she was overqualified for the job that I hired her for, but totally underqualified for what she became. And she grew into a role. And it's funny because when I first hired her, she was a college dropout. She had just had a baby, and she couldn't go back to school, and she couldn't go to work because her husband is a seafarer. He works on a boat 6 months out of the year, sometimes longer. So she couldn't go to an office. She couldn't go back to school. She has kids. And I was able to craft a job around her schedule so that she could do her work on her own time when she needed to. And I set up a way so that I pay people by deliverables. Okay. I know that she's doing the payroll every 2 weeks. I know that she's monitoring certain web projects. She has a very specific job to make sure that people are billing accurate time. This is stuff that she can do it while I'm sleeping. I don't care when she does it as long as it gets done. Right. So this is what's beautiful about the remote virtual workforce that we have right now. If you can craft it in, think of all the stay-at-home moms that are overqualified to be stay-at-home moms. Yeah. My wife has a degree. She's a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids. She ain't going nowhere, right? And she doesn't trust anyone with the kids. So I don't either. So no one's going to raise them better than us, hopefully. So the bottom line is you now have a plethora, especially with COVID-19, of talent out there that would love to work from their computer in their underwear, just like I am right now, and will do whatever the heck you want for the right price. That's all I'm saying.
Dude, beautiful, man. Well, dude, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate the guy that you are and the heart that I even now learned more about, right? Your desire to impact the younger generation and be a guide for them and give them direction. So how can people get a hold of you? How can they reach out? Some of the details about your virtual assistant company would be great also.
Yeah, if you just go to jeffjhunter.com, I have a couple links on there. You can check out the virtual assistant. The very first thing on the top of my website is actually a link to learn how the top 10 things you can have a virtual assistant do for you. It's literally on the very top of the website. You can check that out. And if you want to learn more about the core branding method, that's on the website as well. But yeah, like I said, building a brand by yourself sucks. And I wish I would have known a lot sooner that, there's affordable things that you can do, especially virtually. 80% of my team's in the Philippines. And it's an incredible opportunity right now for people to build a business, especially with the new remote economy we work in. So
awesome, dude. Well, appreciate it, brother. Thank you for your time, and look forward to our continued relationship.
Thanks, Skyler.
Thanks, man.